All right, we are back. We're here at the lineup, and we have a special guest with us today. He is a world-renowned big wave charger hailing from Cornwall in the UK. He's competed in big wave events in the past, his best result finishing third in Puerto Escondido. He is the subject of a feature film currently available on Vimeo, Are Now, an inspired portrait documentary of his life and upbringing in the UK and in Ireland. We have the incredible Tom Lowe on the lineup today. Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, is that my intro?
That's
Thanks,
your intro, buddy.
I mean, that's kind. I don't know about all that. But
we have fact checkers. I'm sure it works.
Let's just, soul surfer. Basically, we're still going. That's my claim to fame. That would be my intro. We're coming up to 40 this year, and we're still in the mix. So that's my claim, mate.
Like a fine wine. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, we're not even close to peaking yet, mate. So.
No, I mean, look at Kelly. He still thinks he's got another 20 years before he hits his peak. You have decades.
To Kelly Slater.
Everyone does.
That guy's on a whole nother. Yeah, I don't know what dimension he was born on, but it's not this one. He's an incredible human, or not human, alien.
That's probably fair. Well, yourself, you come from a very unique part of the world, a very special part of the world, but you have had a pretty nomadic existence over the last few years. But where are you talking to us from today?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're always on the road for sure. I mean, to be honest, my life's been on the road since like 15, since I left, more or less, since I left school. You know, we leave school around that time. And by 16, it was just what we did. We just hit the road for 6 months of the year, and then we came home and we lifeguarded, washed dishes, did whatever we had to do to save up and go away again. So it's been a long time of doing that. But right now I'm in Raglan, in New Zealand.
Oh, beautiful.
This is where both my daughters were born, in Raglan here, and my wife's from the East Coast. So so this is kind of not, I wouldn't say Raglan necessarily is home away from home, but New Zealand's becoming, more of a home than England, based on the kids and obviously the missus and her family, and it's not too far away from the sort of Cornish, Irish coast, Portuguese. That's where we're usually spending time between those three countries. So it kind of feels a little bit like that over here, with the rugged coastline, waves, and temperatures is not so different. Bit nicer than England, obviously, but yeah.
That's
pretty sick.
That is interesting. New Zealand's such a beautiful place too, and as you pointed out, it's probably climate-wise pretty similar to where you are most of the rest of the year, whether it's in the UK or not. You've had a pretty busy and a really eventful 2023. You're a father again. Congratulations on your new baby girl.
Thanks.
And you had got worldwide recognition and a heart-stopping injury at Teahupo'o. We're about 5 months removed from that injury. So 2023 year for you has probably been up and down in a lot of ways.
Yeah. That injury is a really interesting sort of thing to process now, or even talk about, because it's like, even though it was just only 5 months ago, like I haven't kept track on time. Within 2 months, I was after the injury, I was paddling around in the flat water. Like, I was fast to be connecting. I was in the sea every single day, even when after my surgeries, to connect with the sea. So the reason why I bring that up is just because I feel like it's old news. It's like just a little chapter. It was the most extreme injury I've had, and the scariest, but yet, because it was mainly fracture related and not any ligaments, I was able to recover fast, a lot faster than pretty much all my injuries. Like, whether it's a broken ankle, knee, dislocated knee, shoulders, all these other things we've done, they take sometimes 6 to 8 months to get back right. So, but yeah, it's been action packed. Yeah. I mean, it's always is with me though, mate. Every year's like this. It's like, I mean, when you got kids too, it's never a time to cruise or like hit that neutral button. It's just go, go, go. And, but it's go, go, go in a lovely way. And, we're a good little unit. Like, my wife Tess is so supportive of, what I love doing. And she loves to travel herself. So for us to say, oh, let's settle down or anything like that, it
Right.
doesn't feel like it's the time. We're quite happy to bounce around and do our thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you, yeah, want to talk any more about the injury, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
guess
let's
my
get
main
into that a
feeling
little
on it,
more. I think
yeah.
it's important. Yeah.
It's been an interesting. Well, look, I mean, I got smashed up real bad. People have heard the story. We've done the interviews with the whole like what happened.
Mm,
Like hitting the reef, having to get myself to the land after hitting the reef was quite a saga.
mm,
Mate, and that whole process itself was. I mean, I could talk for hours about what that entailed because it was a long day. It was into the evening. The injury was in the morning, and it wasn't until late evening that I was sort of having my second sort of surgery, and then
right.
I was sort of out of it a lot of that day. So that was a journey in itself, and then to have be in that much pain over that sort of 3 week period was so over. Like it was just everything. It took everything from me, but. Um, like I said just now, I was able to bounce back
Mm,
very fast because I actually had to stay in Tahiti for about 3 weeks after the injury because I wasn't allowed to fly because I didn't puncture my lungs, but I had um, internal bleeding between my rib cage and my lungs, and there was a lot of fluids in there, and they were worried that for a lot of reasons that it might be detrimental to jump on a plane. So I had to hang about and get checkups. And so anyway, the fam flew out to me and we hung out there and we were able to recover really nicely there, just staying completely still. I
right.
wasn't able to sleep, mind, like hardly anything. Like I slept, but it felt like I was on a 3 week flight journey, like almost
Mm,
like never ending. I could only sit up straight.
mm,
Otherwise, I had 5 broken ribs. And so
right.
to breathe was so painful, and I had a broken shoulder. So it was a really full on process. But yeah, we I was so happy to be alive and so loved
Right.
up and euphoric that I didn't really. I just felt like it was a challenge that was going to make me stronger, and I saw it in so many positive ways. And I was just, as cheesy it sounds, like smelling the flowers again, like everything was fresh. It was reborn kind of energy. So I was on that, even though I was in so much pain. I was sitting upright for 3 weeks straight. It was like, and just couldn't really move very well. It was a pretty amazing journey in itself. Like that pain, what it brings you, there's a lot of learning, a lot of evolving, and it makes you sort of recalibrate everything that's important in your life, and it just brings up, yeah, just you like it's like a rebirth, man. Going through a trauma like that, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I think from our listeners' perspective too, it might be worth just talking about it because I'm interested too.
Okay.
They'll watch, other sports, whether it's, football or basketball or even, surf competitions where, yeah,
Mm,
people are maybe putting their bodies on the line, but there are kind of standards and practices and safety protocols and medical help. And it varies, of course, but with what you do and what your colleagues do in this space, you're going to different countries. The healthcare and the medical sophistication differs depending on where you go, and you don't necessarily have those built-in systems when something like this does happen. Can you talk to us just a little bit about that part of it and how you have to navigate when you get into those situations, just wherever you're at?
well, I guess, I mean, like we're like a family in a sense that, like,
Mm,
if somebody who just wants to go and ride some heavy surf in
mm,
Ireland, for instance, and says an Instagram messages me or gets my email off someone or whatever, if they want to come over, there's enough people I know, and I connect them with the right safety guys with the jet
mm,
skis. So they would then, I'd pass them on, and then we all just chip in, man. Like
mm,
whoever's kicking around, you chip in, and they keep an eye on you.
mm,
And it's only getting safer
mm,
with people's skill level on jet skis and first responding courses, and obviously the inflation vests that you've got going on. They
yeah.
help. So basically, we have like the vests on underneath our wetsuits, which we can inflate. They have like CO2 canisters inside, and you can just inflate them, a bit like being on an aeroplane, right? And you just an inflation vest, and that will help you come up to the surface. So all these things that are regularly used, and they're making it safer for everyone. And yeah, I mean, really, when I go to Jaws or Mavericks, or I'm going over to Nazaré or wherever, or Ireland for a big paddle sessions, and I'm connecting with the people on that swell who are going, and the locals on the ground, and yeah, we basically support each other, like and that's kind of how it works on that front. But there's times when, of course, lots of times when you're just surfing a place, it's like an underground kind of session. There's just like a handful of you surfing, or maybe you're like the only guy wanting to paddle, or who knows. And then if something happens, you're not on your own, because you have people kicking around. But yeah, shit goes down and it can get heavy, and you haven't necessarily got Greg Long on the jet ski, like your boys, like picking you up and giving you the care you need. Like there's not always like, yeah, there's the measures in place at certain places that are underground. So it depends on the spot, but more often than not, you got the angles covered. We support each other, and that's kind of how that works. If that answered the question.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned before, your family came out to visit you, and it must have been like an amazing experience having to go through this really traumatic event and feel all this pain. But as you pointed out, having that kind of love and support almost immediately with you for the recovery. But I did want to ask, because this comes up a few times when we speak to individuals that pursue, waves, like really critical, serious waves like you do, in terms of becoming, a husband or becoming a father, and how that impacts their psychology when it comes to pushing it and risking it in really serious conditions. I'm wondering if it's given you strength to continue to do what you're doing and sharpened your focus, or if it's given you pause in terms of how hard do I want to push it in this space? Because I know everyone's different when it comes to that part of their life.
Well, I think there's a few phases that comes up to me is like there's a few different energies that like forces that power me along. Like, you have a pretty strong ego and like drive and like energy when you're a young like bull, in a sense. Like, you're after everything that moves. You want to be on every swell, and you want to send it and go on like the heaviest wave out of every session. That's your mission, and that's like the vibe, and that's a teenage kind of me. And coming into my 20s, it's just like go on the heaviest one today, make it all matter, like do it as if it's your last day on earth. Like that's kind of my vibe. Like it's all or nothing, and I won't go out into the sea unless I'm going for the biggest, heaviest. And that's kind of like my mindset, which is pretty heavy kind of headspace and feeling to go into a swell. And when we're training beforehand, we're doing really aggressive training. We're pushing it hard. We're pushing everything to the limit mode. Yeah. And then you get this beaten out of you. You get injured. You get messed up. You realize, okay, we got to like figure that out. That's over like 10 years. It takes a while to get to the point where you're like slowing it down. You're starting to take more calculated risks. You're more prepared for the wave, whether it's the board you're riding, or just picking your moments to basically, put it on the line and go for it. You're picking those battles, not just going for everything. And less is more, so it starts to turn into a bit like that, and you're more calculated. And, when you're training, you're doing like, I guess you kind of under training, I'd under train in a sense. I'd always do little, like a lot. And that would be my training, like every day do something, like, but you're not training where you're like basically kind of in a red zone where you kind of could get injured, and you're going into a swell and you're already pretty taxed because you've been like doing like HIIT workouts the day before and all this sort of other business. And it's not good for your system, and I used to just be on that one. I think through these surgeries and big impact injuries, I would be in England, bedridden, can't surf for 6 months, going like, geez, we got to run up and down steps with this arm strapped to me just to keep fit. This is going to be a tough journey. And you start to think, man, I got to change things. So it's a gradual. There's a chapter of it's about 10 years where it's just very self-destructive and beast mode. And there's a chapter of like, and I haven't met my wife yet, but we're slowing it down. We're starting to think, differently, not going on every swell, concentrating on one ride. I want to get at one wave, and putting sort of like a solid few months into that, waiting around and living at a spot and really zoning into it. And that was where I went through that kind of period, maybe like mid 20s and stuff. And then I guess like as I got when I met Tess, let's just specifically talking about Tess, like that was 7 years ago, my wife, and that was just epic. It was again just I'd already gone into that. Like I was living in Portugal, we were cruising there, we're jumping on swells to Ireland. I'm thinking I don't need to go on that swell to Mavericks. I don't need to do all these other things because I'm going to concentrate on what's in my heart. Like which ride I really want is a wave, at Mullaghmore in Ireland, let's say, on this amazing 90 that I've just had shaped. It's just sitting there in front of me, and we're just going to get on that right swell and get that amazing ride. That's my mission. And sort of that was a few years. And, before we know it, Tiger Lily's coming in the mix, and we're into that world. Yeah, we're having a baby. We're coming over to Raglan. And then it's sort of, I wouldn't say it slows me down as such as far as the rides that I'm getting, which are significant. It actually had the reverse effect. It made me get better rides. There was more like love in my life, and I think I was more, even more tuned in a spiritual sense and in a sort of grounded sense. I was just really in the moment to moment because I that's what you are with kids, and I think that I would just go off that instinct even more than I used to, and that thing just never lies. And for me personally, the drive is coming from a less ego place, and it's just more of a love. Like it's even deeper. It's like it's almost like a mature relationship. Do you know what I mean? When you're like you love that fresh energy, and that's what I used to have, like that fresh, raw, like crazy energy when you get a honeymoon period, and then you go into like deeper, and and it's like more drawn out, but it's like even more like love in a sense in the big picture. So it's like that with my surfing, if that makes sense.
It does. Well, it totally
just got
does.
Better, it just got better.
Well, I think what you said makes sense, right? Because there's what you're kind of describing is like a security that comes with age and maturing experiences, right? Whether you're living those in life or becoming a husband or becoming a father. And as you pointed out, it's like the ego part of it is motivating for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also, that comes from kind of an insecure place as well, right? Where it's like now that you've kind of evolved into this, there's a strength in being able to tune in and go, I'm secure with myself. This is coming from a place of love. And you mentioned before, the physical training that goes into preparing for tackling these kinds of waves. It does sound like there's quite a lot of psychological training or mental preparation that goes into it too, or maybe that's more important.
Psychologist, my wife is a clinical psychologist, and although she doesn't sit there with me, and we don't do all that because she's my missus, and that's not the vibe. I've definitely there's definitely little things, if I'm tripping on something, like even last week, there's a swell at Jaws, and I'm thinking, do I need to get on this thing? Do you know what I mean? Is this significant enough? Like, what's the deal? I start getting all in my head, and just having someone to talk to from a real grounded place. And also, the fact that she is a psychologist, she can say the right things to basically make me believe that I'm making the right decision, even if I'm not, right? And that's all that really matters. But there's something, the ego, like you're saying, we need that. We need that to get us pumped, to get us motivated. It gets us up and gets us doing things. But when you're really jumping on a swell, if I'm looking 2 or 3 days out and I'm looking at this swell, this big storm, and I'm thinking, okay, is this the right time? When you really just, listen, from, I think, a pure place, and you do it for the right reasons, I think that's when it works out real good for you, There shouldn't be like that, there's always a few doubts that will creep in, but, you through experience, you gained over time, you know when to pull the trigger, and it just feels so much different now going on a swell than it used to. It's like, yeah, and with the fact that, like, I'm supporting the fam,
Mm.
like financially, it's like, man, I'm gonna make this mother count. Like, I'm going hard this swell.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like if I'm gonna go over there, I ain't playing around. Like, I'm not just turning up to sort of sit about and bob about. Like, I'm going to get something done. Like, because you know, I just feel that pressure on myself. And my Tess would hate me to say that, because she's like, no, it doesn't matter. You do what you feel and tune in on the day, see how it goes. But I'm like, no, I'm gonna at least get a badass wipeout.
Well, but
At least.
yeah, and that's such a good way to put it, because I mean, from the sound of it, of course, Tess
Makes it
wouldn't be
worth
like,
it.
better go over there and earn the money. But that goes back to what you're saying before of like being a father and just being tuned in, even to how you're using your time, right? Where you're like, I'm
Yeah,
not going over there just to dawdle around. I have
yeah.
responsibilities, and like,
Windows,
I am
you know
I
how
am
it is.
focused. And that, it does sound like your approach to surfing is a very like, mind, body, spirit oriented kind of approach. And, after that injury in Tahiti, I think you did an interview, or there was an article about you with New York Magazine. And in it, you even talked about, I think being, when you were laid up in the Tahitian hospital, having an out of body experience. And I was hoping you could retell that story for
Yeah,
us, and whether or not that was the
yeah.
first time you'd had it, or what you think it meant.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any kid out there. Like, if you're a child, if you can take yourself back to, and you can say it's your imagination and things like that. I think every child, probably including you, Dave, is like had those experiences that, oh, he's like, there's some, he's seeing monsters and ghosts in his bed, or he's talking gibberish because he's like this, that, and the other, or like you were out in the bush and and you were like, or you're in the forest and you had an experience with this, or you saw this, or I mean, to be honest with you, like, I'm very open-minded as far as what's kind of what you can tap into.
Mm.
And I think that I've always been pretty open to it. So whether it's like when I used to live in Ireland, during those dark winters, I used to really connect when I was around sort of 20 odd, and I used to like, it sort of was just like getting out of Cornwall and then being sort of in that environment of raw nature,
Mm.
with no other sort of distractions. It was a really easy way for me to just connect with nature and to have experiences similar during that time. And you're not under the influence of any drugs or
Mm.
alcohol, and it's not about that. It's a really pure state. It's like you're walking along the coastline. Maybe you start to suddenly you're doing this, like, I guess, Wim Hof style breathing stuff and movements on the cliff top. You don't know why you're doing it. You
Mm.
could say, "Oh man," sometimes you feel really silly. I'd laugh at myself sometimes when I'd be doing stuff because I'd feel stupid and look around like maybe someone saw me doing this Tai Chi shit or whatever the hell I'm doing. But um, it felt good, and it could take you to a place where maybe you're feeling like the vibrations coming through the ground from the waves in front of you, and obviously there's a lot of energy there. And then you'd go to some a tree where you'd sort of know that that thing is sort of somehow important to that area, and that you don't know why. And then you'll see a burial ground close by, and then you start to connect with that area.
Mm.
And there's just there's sort of it's an awkward thing to talk about because you don't want to sound like a loony.
No, I
You
know what you
don't
mean.
want to sound, because you don't want to be put in a category of like this person, because I'm not like that on an everyday basis. It's just um, I don't like to, and I don't like to put my limited vocabulary into like trying to explain what this is. It's just a feeling stuff. This is all feeling stuff. It's like when you love somebody, there's energy in the room or whatever it is, or there's a bad energy. You don't have to like explain why it's that.
Mm.
Somebody you can meet and they don't have to speak, but you can tell they're just not having a nice time right now or whatever.
Right.
It's like, it's just obvious stuff. It's the same with the animals. It's the same with the trees, the sky, stars, all of it. It's just, it's all vibrations of energy, and I personally can feel like I enjoy being open to that. And
Mm.
there's been certain situations where I've like felt those similar experiences to when I was in Tahiti, for
Mm.
sure. It can often become in a like a traumatic way, where you like have a nasty hold down, maybe you're blacking out in the water, which I have, and it's scary because you have this deep inner thing of being really scared of death, right? Everyone's scared, like die. You want to stay alive. It's
Mm.
instinct. You want to stay alive.
Right.
Um, but it's okay in myself. I feel like once you just have been put in that situations where like the death's real, whether it's in your mind real or not, it doesn't really matter. It feels real, and then I think crossing over to some sort of very peaceful place is where we all will end up feeling anyway. So that once you get through that fear, it's actually very peaceful. And I personally have felt that my life being sort of drawn away from me, and then that opened up some very beautiful feelings and visions that last with me forever. And obviously, I get to live again. It's just
Mm.
not. It's a pretty, it's quite a powerful thing to go through when you think you're going to die, and then you feel like you've died, and then you're suddenly back talking to people. It's very surreal because it takes you a minute. Like, what? Okay, so we're back. We're actually back on what we're doing now, talking to each other on this one. But there's other, there's other places that you can tap into, and it doesn't take death to tap into them. A lot of
Right.
people practice meditation. A lot of people do it through the breath, and um, a lot of people just have experiences. Like they just go for a stroll and something happens. But yeah, for me, it's been that Tahiti one was very vivid. It's very new. It was very visually wild as well. I don't know whether, and it wasn't just when I was in the hospital. It kind of kicked in when I basically had to get airlifted because I had internal bleeding when they took me to the first hospital, and they were worried for me. So straight in the air ambulance, and it was in that air ambulance that I started to get a very scary feeling come over me. It felt just pure panic and
Mm.
worry and fear, yeah. And so it was like that was and then from that, we kind of went through into a very euphoric, beautiful state. But in between all that, there was so many. You know how fast the mind works, and
Mm.
it was almost like a new part of my mind was being fired up, and there was old, heavy stuff coming through as well as stuff I'd never felt. And it was by the time I got to the hospital, I was having my surgery, which they didn't even put me out for.
Oof.
I was awake during this surgery to get this tube put inside of me to drain the blood, and during that, I don't remember what happened because I was kind of just, I don't know whether I passed out or what happened, but that was another time that I had these pretty vivid like visions of very scary, voidy, suctiony, getting pulled into something dark and scary to open up into a very euphoric, beautiful pureness that can only, yeah, it's just ecstasy. It's just like pure love and light and a tone of like a tone and you can hear that's just so nice to hear. It was just such a nice feeling, and I knew that I was going to be okay then. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I did feel like I had some serious, serious energy from my family that was just deep in me. Like it's just that's just part of you. It's like a huge part of you, like your wife and your kids.
Hmm.
They're like, it's part of your huge soul. So there was a part of that that just, yeah, it's just like, man, you're fine. Like I feel like I'm fine now. Like I can go in as well. I feel like I could wipe out. I'm good. Like if
Yeah.
yeah, no matter what, I've got those guys. I'm coming back with them, and we're gonna flow through this life together. So it was a sense of that. I just came back when I was in Tahiti and just was like, I just knew everything was going to be fine then, like it was quite amazing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I know, and I get what you're saying too, where it's like, sometimes it's hard to put that kind of
It just
stuff into
sounds,
words,
yeah,
but like, I don't know, what's the line? Like, the more you learn, the less you know, right? And I think when
yeah,
we're young, we're like, oh, I know everything about life and it's definitive. And it's like, that's just because you're young and stupid. Like, the more you learn, you're like, wow, there's so much that I don't know. And there's so much more mystery to life that I was so closed off. Like, and it doesn't matter what
yeah,
walk of life you come from. And even the way you describe, as you pointed out, like what it feels like to go through a very real near-death experience. So I think human beings as a species have such a weird relationship with death. It's like there's been 170
yeah,
billion humans that have come through the planet.
yeah,
Every single one of them dies, but
yeah,
everyone is so
yeah,
scared about it that they're not always open to even talking about it with an open mind.
yeah. I really wonder how, there's so many different cultures though out there
Mm,
that look at it differently, right? And
yeah.
so it's such a fascinating subject. It's such a powerful subject because it's just, yeah, and then you see the life of my little baby girl born. I caught her in the bath, came out of mama, and put her in on mama. And I mean, what the hell? It's just that. If that isn't a miracle, like it is. Do you know what I mean? That's just the most beautiful thing in the world. And so it's amazing how close we are, though. Like there was a moment where she didn't make a cry.
Mm,
When she was on mama. Oh, is she okay? And these so close, aren't we? To both sides, and it's scary, but it's just in that rawness of like insanity too. It's right there, mental health. I feel like these things are so close to us that we can just tip over. And but then if we can take away, like we are hopefully with the mental health, being a
mm,
lot more open about it, and it being a bit more yeah, verbally just connected on it. And I just feel like it waters it down, man. If
mm,
inmates were able to talk to each other that were struggling with stuff or what
mm,
we're going through, and the same with death. It's like this big fear thing, and it's like it's a very taboo subject. Like with my
mm.
wife, for instance, it's a very something that she doesn't feel. Yeah, she's a very very respectful around that subject, and I think to the point where it's like you don't really want to talk about it. Even if someone's a bit older, it's quite an awkward and a scary thing to bring up, and
Yeah.
and I respect that. I think that I'm a bit more sort of less sensitive with it
Mm.
when I'm speaking personally about my circle, but like I'm respectful of other people's, vibe. But it's always a very touchy subject, to talk about. But it's so real, right? It's just so there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the open-mindedness with which you kind of approach it's refreshing because it does feel like human beings in the information age. Everyone's got a supercomputer in their pocket with their phone, and it's like there's not a lot of humility that comes alongside that. You never hear anyone say, "I don't know," because everyone's like, "I'll just Google that and pretend like I know." But that in a way, it kind of erases being open to like really true mysteries in life where you're like, guys, we don't know, and there can be a little
There's a
more
lot of I don't
humility with
knows.
which, yeah.
Mm,
And I just feel like, I don't know, I've always felt really liberated, and maybe I do it too much in saying like, I don't know, but like, it's nice being honest about it. And it's nice having an open mind
yeah,
when you hear other people's experiences and perspectives.
yeah, fully. And I
Mm,
mean, it just like I was just wanting to feel like at the end of our previous topic, it was like about the drive with the family and things like
mm,
that coming into the picture. And I was thinking, just wanted to make a point to say like how I find it still so fascinating when I think about it. Um, how once I had Tiger Lily, our first girl, I was so worried, like because I won't be able
right.
to train as much and I can't put
Right.
all of my energy into it and I'm all in,
Yeah.
selfish mode, let's go, and but I wasn't getting the rides. I was getting like five super gnarly wipeouts every season that were like, oh my God. And all of them somehow weren't that bad, by the way. I'd just get a hold down,
Right.
pop up and be sweet. And people are like, okay, he's alive,
Right.
and we'd
Right.
be
Yeah.
fine. So the bad ones that look bad somehow aren't
Mm.
majority of the time. These big gnarly ones, it's the little sneakers
Yeah.
on your little local reef that you're not paying attention on that seem to the majority of the time wallop you. Not to say that these beasts can't take you out. I'm just saying like it's the sneaky ones I found.
It,
And
it's
but
so
what I'm
true.
saying is when
Yeah.
Tiger was born, my best rides came about that year. Like the ride of my life basically
Right.
that year, and then from there it's just been going very well. Apart from we had a bit of a wipeout at Chopu, yeah, but that was a good one. Like
Yeah.
that was a positive thing. It was, it's only a positive, that one. That wasn't a big deal. Like as far as psychologically and physically, I think it was just a positive.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
let's get a quick break in here because we've got a lot more to talk about. But we'll take a break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we will come right back. All right, we are
yeah.
back. This is the lineup. I am Dave Prodan here with Tom Lowe. Tom, awesome conversation before that break. I would love to wind the clock back a little bit and give the listeners a little more context and color around just where you came from, because it's a pretty unique place for a surfer of your level. So can you give us a bit of background? Where did you come from? What was your family life like? Mom, dad, siblings, where did Tom Lowe incubate?
Sure. Well, I mean, like we had happy family happening. We're in Cornwall and
Mm-hmm.
we're living in the countryside, a little bit out of town, out of St Ives. I was born in Newlyn, which is south coast. But yeah, I grew up around St Ives, basically. Small fishing village, tourist town. Good vibes, good art, creativity. Some good older surfers kicking around, but like pretty bad surf and cold. And in the winter, unless you're, yeah, able to surf in the day, which you're not because you have to go to school, we basically couldn't surf because it was dark when you went to school and dark when you came home. So it was a pretty bleak existence in winter. Um, but anyway, as a kid, yeah, when I was about age 4 or something, mum and dad finally split up. And then that happy family countryside little thing was going on, which I don't really remember much anyway.
Mm.
I really don't. Like, was done, and we were then they're living in separate places in St Ives, and I'm going to like St Ives school or whatever. And I mean, my relationship with school from being young to junior school, primary school, whatever it's called, to like senior school, it was all terrible. I hate school. I hated it with a vengeance. But then, home life, I didn't like either. It
Mm.
wasn't very nice. We had a bit of playtime action, a bit of fun action. Everyone's doing the best they can, but it was pretty, um, I think, like just difficult for my mum. Basically, kind of just yeah, feeling like she's doing a lot by herself. Me and my sister. I got a sister 2 years older. But then my he's amazing. He's always there. But it's when they're not together and there's a bit of conflict, it makes life it's just not very settled as a kid. And love them both to bits. Have a great relationship with all of my family. So that's what's important. They all get on great now, which is also what's beautiful.
Mm.
But there's a time when we're younger where it's just everyone's probably experienced it at some stage in their family life where the parents aren't getting on well, and it's not. Yeah, it's not nice for a kid. Let's face it. That's just what it is. That's the truth of it. But they love me to bits and they're there for me, and so I'm lucky for that. So anyway, that's kind of a bit about that. But yeah, I kind of skateboarded more than I surfed because skateboarding was you could do it all the time, even when it's raining. You could skate in the rain, so it was just something we did. We wanted to be like Jay Adams and all that, and just like Dogtown boys, like skating around, shaping our own skateboards, and being chased by police and egging them and just causing as much trouble as possible. Really is the mission, because it's just you're bored and you're immature and you're a bit of a troubled soul, but that's kind of what it was. It was just running around town with skateboards and water bombs and eggs, really, and just having a bit of fun. But nothing too serious, like jail and all that. It wasn't like that. But we moved around quite a bit. And I used to, this my dad's from Liverpool, so there's quite a bit of Liverpool action, which are awesome. Love Liverpoolians. But and then there's the sort of, I don't know, there's a side of my family that's maybe not as PC, so it's like no, I'm not a surf, I don't come from like a core surfing background or skateboard or something like that. Like I push Mongo. Okay. I'm making that on the podcast right now. Everyone's just like, you're a kook. So I'm a kook. Okay. So, yep, that's me. And I didn't even know that was a thing until I was like 20 something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I've been skating since I'm like, could like walk, going mental, thinking that I'm a little skateboard guy, which I'm not very good, but I was loving it. And then, next thing you know, I'm like, look at you, at the skate park. Oh, sugar, I'm a full kook. So that's because we didn't know. There was no elders who ripped, who like we thought, they're teaching us stuff. Same with surfing. There's no one like teaching you how to put like a leash string on, or like
right, yeah,
how to duck dive. Well, no one's showing you nothing. There was no surf school action or anything like this, or a vibe. It was just old school, like get out there and give it a crack and put the time in, and don't talk about any of your turns or any of your moves ever to anyone, because like, you don't want to be big head. Second you say anything, it's an old school generation of like take the piss out of you, like put you down.
yeah.
That's how you do it. So that was like the sort of Cornish upbringing vibe. And it was when I went to Ireland for the first time around 20 odd that I we went traveling before that. We'd been to Hawaii, we'd been to Mexico, like Puerto Escondido. We'd been to West Australia. I'd started to gravitate towards heavy waves and loved it when it came about. So I was naturally into it. But then there was like I went to Ireland and my whole life changed. That's pretty much it.
Well,
as soon as I went there.
Yeah, and I want to get to that. I do want to, and I appreciate that background. That's super interesting. I mean, it's not that the United Kingdom hasn't ever produced world-class surfers. I mean, there's been, Russell Winter and Spencer Hargraves and Ruben Ash, and I mean, even Martin
Legends,
Potters from the UK originally.
But come on, he's.
I don't want to claim it. Fair enough.
He's so sick.
Good.
Nah,
but my point is, it's, as you pointed out, it's like, it's not a surfing hotspot. And even where you grew up in Cornwall, you pointed out, it's like, it's not like the waves are great. It's dark when you're going to school. It's dark by the time you're coming home. It's cold. You must recognize the unique situation you're in, that you came from there and developed into, you probably resist this, but like a world-class surfer, and one when you were a teenager where it seemed like people were interested in supporting you surfing. Like that's pretty unique, right?
Yeah, I mean, I never took it like, I guess it is. But there's, I don't know. There's a lot of I think as well, we all inspire each other. The circle I'm in, there's a lot of like people, whether it's the musicians or the artists, that just went all in and said, you know what, like, they said, you got potential, like give it a crack. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't. Right. We were like us against the world vibes a bit, So it's like, whether it's your mum and dad and your like the people around town, like, they're like, yeah, surfing, like cool and everything, but like you got to get a job, get a trade under your belt, get a trade, So it was like it was sort of just inspiring us more, like, and when we travel around, when people are just like, oh, you pommies can't surf, like, what I mean? You won't surf the swell, like, that kind of thing. So I like that underdog status. So it's just like that coming from England stuff. it just it's like a motivation that's like in our core, and there's a lot of us doing it, and like my mates have like made it with music and art, and it just makes me want to keep going because I'm just like, yeah, we used to just cruise around town like doing nothing, you know what I mean? Just like gambling in the arcade, like trying to get a couple of quid so we could like, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Just get pissed that night.
but all that makes sense. Like sometimes, like the threat of employment is motivation enough to be like, no, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to succeed
get
here.
A real job.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am curious, right? Because you came from, frankly, an off the surfing map location. You developed enough to the point where people wanted to support you doing this. But let's get to the Ireland part of it, because you said that trip changed your life.
That is connected with that. It's literally that because before that it wasn't money or anything like that, and that's like, so I didn't do like contests, I didn't get any results, I had nothing under my belt, a couple of shots in Carve magazine. Shout out to like Steve England, still doing it in England, legend, and like he's had my back since day one. Any little picture that comes through a Lowe, he'd be like, let's bang it in there, boys, like give him a call. And I get the odd picture, and people were giving me boards, and I had like clothes and a wetsuits for free, and that was awesome. You know what I mean?
Deal.
Put a little sticker on your board.
Right.
XL I was with, I'd be like, yeah, XL. Like just, I don't know, like Van shoes, like I've been repping the Van shoes for that whole time. That's a long time I've been with them. So,
but even
like,
the non-financial part of that, it creates a permission system for you, or for a lot of people, to be like, this is validation in my dream. Like they believe in me enough to take that next step sometimes. And sometimes that next step, as you pointed out, is Ireland, right? So tell us a little bit about how that first trip came together, and why it had such a profound impact on you.
We saw people were sessioning it for years before, like my buddy, my mate from home, Mickey Smith, he'd found these waves previously, years before, and they were coming out in the magazines, and they all just looked crazy over there, So I was like, oh, that looks insane. But, we were so pumped on just going somewhere tropical, like Indo, because all we're doing is whacking our big wetsuits on. We want to go somewhere warm. And so we did that, but then it got to the point where it's like, we're kind of into getting like heavy surf now, and like we're improving, and, we want to push it. And so I started like, I guess like thinking about it seriously during summer, working at home with a couple of my best mates who were also going to go with me. We're all lifeguards. It was just old school vibes of like good fun on the beach lifeguarding. And so it was like, we're going to go Ireland on a trip. So yeah, the three of us just basically got this little Opel Kadett. It was just like a little funny car. And then we just chucked all the stuff on and drove over there, at the end of our lifeguarding stint in the summer. And we said, we don't know how long we're going for. We're just going to all live at, basically just called Mickey Smith out of the blue and said, have you got a spot where we can skip on the floor or whatever? And so we all just lived in his front room until he kind of just, probably his missus was probably Rivka. His missus was like, hey, you guys got to get your own spot, you stink, kind of style. But we basically just hung out there for, I think it was about 3 months in the end. And during that period, it was just straight into it, like all the wrong equipment, but all the right drive and heart and love for waves of consequence. And we just basically got stuck in, and I got really stuck in, and Mickey was showing me these pictures, and that was it was almost like an epiphany where I saw myself on this big screen of his pictures of me surfing that and I couldn't believe it was me, they were just me in some nice, like, nothing special, but it was, for me, it was very special. And I was like, wow. And he was like, that's you, mate. Like, you need to, keep doing this. Like, you don't want to go back to Cornwall. Like, what are you up to? Like, I was going to go home to basically work on site and be a site bitch, I'd just be like cleaning the site up. I didn't have any skills under my belt. I'd pretty much just do any odd job, bringing the tiles on the roof, just, clearing up rubble, taking it to the skip, just boring, and that's what I was going to do. And he's like, don't do that. I'll put together a proposal for you. I'll send it to Rip Curl, who were, also were partnering with Vans at the time, a friend of mine. And he basically just came up with that deal. And that's Rip Curl and Vans were my first sponsor, with Relentless Energy Drink. And the three of them got me enough money that I could travel with Mickey and Fergal Smith, my other friend from Ireland, he was already a star, kind of style in his world. And that was it, man. We could go to Chopu and we could go to like, wherever we wanted, and like basically just make films and get some nice shots off Mickey. And that was it, man. We just hit the road and we didn't stop.
Right.
We bought jet skis in Ireland and maxed out our credit cards and found new waves, and it just went from there, really. I felt like that was the momentum. That's where it kind of catapulted from there,
For listeners who are not familiar with Mullaghmore, how would you describe the wave?
It's like how can to describe it? I mean, it's the takeoff's like a big boil, so it's sort of just like a ledge, which means that it's so deep off the other side of that rock that it can't really break too far out, which makes it safe to surf in a lot of ways as far as waiting for sets.
You're not getting caught.
It's less likely to get caught there than, say, somewhere, many other big wave spots, which is a bigger playing field where you go, where am I? Where am I sitting? Is this thing going to get me? Okay. Right. So like you surf Nazaré. Every time I surf Nazaré, I'm 100% guaranteed to get cleaned up. It's like there's no gray area. So there will be a 30-footer on my head today. Are we ready? Yep, let's go. And that's what you're going into. Jaws, pretty likely if you want to actually try and get a wave, unless you just get lucky or you sit real far out, you're going to get cleaned up. Same at Mavericks. So it's like, yeah. So anyway, that aspect makes it a bit more user-friendly, but then the takeoff is a hit and miss as well, because sometimes it can be a very steep takeoff, very critical, and sometimes it can be really easy and it can just roll you in and off you go. The problem is the takeoff is the easiest part, 100%, because the rest of the ride, if you get a wave which is walled up, which is the ones you want, it's going to be a rough ride one way or another. It's not going to be perfect. So you're going to have to negotiate boils, which are like rocks and turbulence underneath the surface, which are going to create boils and movement and ledges and things to jump over whilst you're flying down the wave, which make it very difficult to negotiate, especially when you're inside a tube. If you've got like air inside the tube, and it's just kind of commitment is paramount, and basically just don't fall off. Like don't let go of that ride. Like make it. That's I kind of just hang on no matter what. Just keep on your board. And keep a solid stance, because it's like Buckaroo. That thing's a wild ride, and it's basically you're going very fast. It's like towing into a wave. That's how fast you go into the tube section, and then you've got to like try and high line it out at the end because it goes into deep water again, which makes it technical, because if you're too deep at that point, you get pinched and crushed and it's game over, so it's a technical ride. It's not perfect. It's all shapes and sizes it's going to throw at you, and like I'm fascinated by it. I think it's a world class. It's up there with the best waves on the planet, because there's not many waves that allow you to, with your own arm power, physically get into a wave that heavy on the barrel section. You'd have to tow it usually on other places. So that's it for me. That's what we're after.
That's a great description. You mentioned that people, I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, you mentioned that, before you turned up there, like people had been surfing the place, but the UK and Ireland, outside of probably the core heavy wave surfer community around the world, was not as well known as, Hawaii or Australia or South Africa or whatever. I'm wondering, when you and Mickey and Fergal started traveling in those early years of you getting the support to do so, did you ever encounter, I mean, I guess you mentioned a little bit, but did you ever encounter kind of any prejudice or bias from, other surfing communities when they're like, you're from the UK and you're going to surf this spot, or was everyone pretty welcoming once you got there?
I think that, I've never come across a situation where I've had like bad vibes when the waves are heavy. It's
Mm,
never been like when it's actually game day and you're turning up, it's like a mutual respect that like,
right.
yeah, like yeah, here we go. Like you're not thinking about like sending someone back to land or like you shouldn't be out here. There's none of that business. It's just like, okay, like you're here today. This is going to be a heavy day. Like yeah. I mean, I hope you're ready to go because it's going to be heavy. But I think that question, what that brings up for me is more of a that underdog mentality thing as well, which is like, you're not because you're from England, and you're not you're surfing these heavy waves, which people appreciate are heavy in Ireland, and other parts of Europe, but because they're not the premier big wave spots on the
Mm,
planet, you're not getting the recognition. Yeah, so you
right.
have to work twice as hard than the other guys. You do. I mean, to get recognized, to get invitations, to get like, yeah, the respect, because it's yeah, it's just how the scene works. Every walk of life has a scene and a little like bit of bullshit about it, and you know, you gotta like. That's why I go over and turn up and try and surf the spots just to sort of get them under my belt in a sense, and like try and see if I can and how they compare to Ireland, and because that way you're kind of, I guess, silencing those questions in your own mind that maybe these waves are heavier than the waves in Ireland, or how do they compare? Because you're wondering why you're not getting maybe the recognition of some of the heaviest rides you've got in Ireland that other people get, like Jaws and Mavericks and
Mm.
places. And I believe that that wave is as heavy. It's just different. And yeah, I guess there was a lot of times where I felt like, man, like kind of like been going pretty gnarly for a few years now, and I'm wondering why. Like, yeah, like I don't know. Like, people need to come basically and surf it? That's probably it. And once they did, everyone that has sat there in the lineup on these waves that we surf has gone, me, this is definitely some of the heaviest surf I've ever been in.
I'm glad you brought
That's a
that up
fact.
because I was going to say the same thing and ask you as well, because it does seem like anytime Mullaghmore comes up with other kind of big wave surfers from other parts of the world, they all have the same comment or a version of it. They're like, I was aware of it. I had no idea how legit and serious this wave was till I got there. And it sounds like that's
Yeah.
been your experience too with surfers visiting the region.
Yeah, it's the same. It's not just that wave, mate. Like you go
Mm,
down the road and there's an 8 to 10 foot slab,
right.
and these guys are charging, the heaviest spots around. But when they turn up there and you got your big wetsuit on and it's cold, and you've already got your ass handed to you at Mullaghmore earlier in the day, and then you're turning up
Right.
at this spot and you've got to send it, and like the local boys are just having a field day. Just it's all just fun and games. You start to go, like, and then there's a lot of those elements are very in your face because one swell down, and you're thawing out trying to get warm, and then the
Right.
next day there's another swell popping up in 2 days time. How keen are you then? And the third swell 2 weeks into your trip, like, you're going to hang around or you're going to fly home, get back in the boardies, because it's like there's different levels of core or charges, man. Like, and the one person that really, really impressed me last winter was Nathan Florence.
Mm.
You can't take it away from the man. You know what I mean? He's simply the best surfer I've ever seen come through Ireland. I don't know what else to say about him. He's just a real cool, like beast when it comes to heavy surf, and like his experience was just evident, and just he doesn't care about the cold. You know what I mean? And that's a
Mm.
factor that's going to be weighed up right next to the surf. Is can you handle the cold? And he loves it. So that was awesome to be around him. It re-inspired me again, to
I'm
to
glad you
just,
brought the
yeah.
cold up because I was going to ask about that in your own experience. And obviously, we're all products of our own environment. But you're someone who grew up with that cold and have had it in your bones and have had to kind of thrive, in that environment. And then you've obviously traveled to warmer climates, whether it's Maui or Tahiti or wherever. Just your opinion. Do you think it's more difficult for you to go from the cold and then thrive in, warmer climates, or vice versa, in terms of people who maybe grew up in Hawaii or grew up in Tahiti having to come to
Oh,
Ireland?
it's definitely
Yeah.
harder to go into the cold, no brainer. And for me, like all the boys in Ireland and that, like the guys that are, they're living there and whatnot, or on all the swells, they know that I'm like trying my hardest not to be in the cold as much as possible these days. You know what I mean? I'm coming in there and I'm like, I love it, but I'm just at the same time, I'm like, I love being, who doesn't want to be sitting, having breakfast on the deck, you know what I mean? Or like going for beach days with the fam, it's the best.
Right.
But, the bottom, yeah, if it wasn't for like the fam, put it this way, I'd be living in Ireland right now. Like I'm fully dead. Yeah. So I love it, but um, yeah, it's definitely pretty nice to jump on a flight and get your shorty wetsuit on, or like your board shorts, and you're just feeling like you can hold your breath forever under the water. But funnily enough, apparently the mammalian reflex works better in cold climates, and you're supposed to be better with apnea in cold water, apparently, because. But I don't feel like that. I feel like every time it's freezing, I'm like, bugger that. I don't want to
I,
be down there for too long. My head pops.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's a version where, like, it's not wrong, but the science crosses over a little bit with, everyone about, like, I do the cold plunge in the morning and it floods my brain with chemicals. And it's like, I guess I'm more alert when I'm surfing cold water. But to your point, it's probably just like the mammalian, like, survival complex where it's like you have to focus and get out of this situation compared to, being
Yeah.
in the warmth.
I mean, I find when I do an ice bath, if I do it in the morning, because often I get up really early, try and, get my training in or do something before the girls wake up. But it's like I'll jump in there at 5 in the morning in the ice, and I'm like, it's for the rest of the day. I feel like I never really warm up,
Right. Yep.
sometimes, and it's like a energy taxing thing. And I don't want to jump back in the sea for a surf later, even in the afternoon, and I'm like, we're down to
Interesting.
10% battery, Dave.
Oh, you are?
10% battery. Well, we might have to go for a little stroll for a second. Sorry, mate.
That's no worries. We can,
Is that me? We'll see. We've changed spot. I'm now sitting on the medicine ball, which is what we use for um, bouncing
multi
baby to sleep.
multitasking. I like this. This is good. You can tick this off
But
as training too, so that's good.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Cool.
I was gonna ask. One of the things that I think most people notice about the quote unquote big wave community is there's not just one type of surfer. There are surfers in the big wave community who only want to tow, and you'd never catch them even paddling a wave, even a small wave, And then there are some
Yeah.
that only want to surf a certain type of wave, like even sort of like a critical wave like Mullaghmore or Teahupo'o. And then there are some that are pretty Swiss Army knife. They rip in small waves, they charge in big waves. And it does seem like from your background, you're able to do quite a few more things than even a lot of folks in the big wave community do, just in terms of you can surf a shortboard, you can surf small waves, you can do progressive surfing, you can charge the barrel, you can tow, you can paddle into huge waves. Number one, is that a fair assessment? And then number two, if it is, do you feel like being able to surf every day or in every kind of wave has actually been advantageous to maybe kind of where you lean in professionally in big wave surfing?
I mean, straight away on that last part of the question, I definitely think that it's just a plus plus to be able
Mm,
to maneuver a shortboard and surf from the grassroots of just maneuvering a shortboard in small waves. I think is fundamental to being a solid big wave surfer, because of course you've got to maneuver that big board in big waves, and your balance is all similar muscles, and I think it translates, a lot. Similar to, skateboarding the bowl and things
mm,
like that. These are similar movements. But and obviously for me, I don't necessarily think about style as something that I think about when I'm doing anything, but um, when the people that I like to watch surfing and that I will take the time to watch or I appreciate are people that have, in my opinion, the style that I like, and that'll be in small waves and in big waves. I think there is style in big waves, and I appreciate, people's style a lot over a big wave ridden. I would prefer to see a smaller wave ridden with style, any day of the week. But, uh, as far as like what how rounded I am as a surfer, I mean, yeah, I grew up obviously surfing sloppy, crappy beach breaks. So you learn how to make the most out of what you're given. And my inner Grom froth is never fading because I love surfing anything, and I'll be out there even if it's onshore, like windy, horrible waves. I'm out there no matter what. I just love it. So um, as far as like the towing and the paddling and stuff, it's like I went through a period, of course, of owning a couple of jet skis with my mates Mickey and Ferg, and that was great fun. And it was all just very much a cowboy era of like trial and error, and nobody really showing us the way. We just learned, as we went along and had a lot of fun in the process. And that was over, I guess, 5 or 10 years of playing around with the towing on jet skis and stuff. Not so much looking for the biggest waves to ride down, more trying to get barreled on the heaviest waves. And we weren't able to paddle those waves. So it was more of a tool to be able to actually ride them, and ride them in the tube. So that's how my toe surfing head relates. It's like I don't think of toe surfing and myself as like mission is to catch the big wave and get the shot or whatever. It was more just get tubed and get the heaviest tubes, and that was what all the peers we were looking up to were kind of doing. Whether it was like Dorian at Chopu and like Laird Hamilton, and then they're towing in getting these massive pits. It was sick, and Laurie Towner and at Shipsterns, and James Homer Cross and those boys down that way, and obviously there was people like Mark Matthews and Kobe Abberton, old Bra boys, and that everyone was just towing these crazy waves around the world, like Jughead, and there was so many people, doing cool stuff that was getting us amped to find new heavy slabs in Ireland and tow them. That was the main motivation. Get these big pitch, and so I guess really we started to try and paddle in between all that. Like every once in a while, there might be a session where it was kind of paddleable, in Mullaghmore or wherever, and we started to go, we're not going to tow at all. We're just going to see how we get on paddling, and basically miss every good one and just have a crack on a couple and find out the hard way it's difficult. And so that's what we did, and in the end, it just kind of played out that way. It was just okay. We don't really need to tow any more of these same waves that we've caught. We've kind of ticked those boxes that we wanted to. Of course, you can always go deeper. You can always get a better ride. But in ourselves, both Fergal and I were really happy with the waves we'd ridden, and there was no real talk about it as such. There wasn't like a meeting where it was a final part. It was just like I was off doing my own thing. He was doing his own thing with music. The other was surfing and growing vegetables and doing sick stuff with his family. It was just like we were doing different stuff. So it was like, let's just sell these jet skis. Who's even got them? I don't even know where they are.
Right.
Let's get rid of them. Give them to a friend. I don't know where they're living. And, let's just move on because I just want to paddle anyway. And I got so much more pleasure and still get so much more pleasure over paddling around, chasing my tail. Even if I don't get any waves, I come out of there and I learn so much. And when I'm towing, I just didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy it at the end at all. It was just like going through the motions, and it wasn't me who chose the wave. It was my driver, and it was his positioning which would dictate how my ride would unfold. And I just, and just sitting on them and the noise and the smell and everything about it was just not fun for me, bobbing around. I don't like all that. So, stoked to just be paddling over the past decade. And that's what all the lads started doing as well. Like you didn't see Dorian towing in at Chopu anymore. You didn't see him. You know what I mean? People started going, all right, like let's paddle in at Jaws. So I was looking at my laptop or whatever, going, geez, look at these guys pioneering jaws, paddling huge jaws. This is wild. Like we need to push what we're doing too, at Mullaghmore, and it just inspired us, and it felt like that was the direction big wave surfing was going. It was like paddling is and always will be the most respected form of riding big waves. It always will be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know?
I appreciate that. I am curious about, in 2023, you've got a number of sponsors who support your career as a professional surfer. You talked about the well-roundedness, so I'm calling it well-roundedness of your abilities, in a way that I think makes a lot of sense. But if you had to explain to someone what your year in, year out career looks like these days, and what you focus on and what your sponsors want you to work on, how would you do it? Is it, oh yeah, they just want me to surf anything I get my hands on, that I am really hunting these kind of big barrels? Like, what is it, and how does that relationship with your sponsors
Well, I
play out in
mean,
23?
the sponsors, like, to be honest, it's always been the same kind of thing with me. Obviously, we used to be like, you know, telling your sponsor, I'm working on a film project, like we're going to be trying to bank some clips over the winter and that, and then put out an edit. You know what I mean? That was
Hmm.
how it used to be. Or it was like shots in the magazine. If you got a cover shot on that, yeah, like send it over to the
Right.
sponsors. They're buzzing, and that's how it was. Right now, it's all Instagram and phones and
Right.
all this
Yeah.
business. So, I'm about as least tech as you can get, but I know how to, you know, basically, get a clip on my phone, and then we just try and put some tunes with it, or we just put it up raw, and that's how we do it on the Instagram. And I don't really um, tend to post a lot. If I do, yeah, it's just when I feel like it, and try and make it like where, hopefully it's a decent enough ride. You know what I mean? But it's it's I don't need to talk to my sponsors about like what I'm up to, really. I think they trust in the fact that I'm, really driven, and that I've been, doing it in the game for a long time now. So I think they trust that I'll deliver, and that I'm hungry and after it. And I mean, at the end of every year, you're giving them your coverage
Yeah.
breakdown, you're giving them your plans, you're doing all the stuff you got to do. But the bottom line is that, like, you know, they know you'll turn up, because you've been doing it for over 20 years, so you're going to turn up. Like, that's how it is. Like, so yeah, basically, I go on what I feel. Like, it's just following my instinct and my heart. There's no pressure on me to like have to go and surf Mavericks next swell or something like that.
Right.
Like, nobody but me cares. Like, it's just all on me. All the pressure's just me.
Yeah, and that
On
does seem
myself.
to be the hallmark of kind of the longest lasting, and most productive, like, surfer sponsor relationships. As you pointed out, like, you've been with Vans for 20 years. They understand who you are, you understand who they are, and you understand how that works. And I'd imagine that as you've matured as a professional surfer and only gotten better, that those relationships, you have a lot more agency in terms of, okay, if I am going to partner with this brand, it's going to be under these conditions, and it works for them and it works for me. And this is an episode presented by Yeti. They're one of our major sponsors. The products are insane. They're also
Yeah.
a supporter of yours. I'd imagine that even if you weren't sponsored by Yeti, you'd probably be looking at those products and using
Yeah,
most of
I'd
those
be
every
trying
day,
to.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be hustling. Yeah, I'd be hustling for sure. I'd be trying to get one of them waterproof bags, or those, and the wheelie coolers. That if we'd be all over my mates. Trust me there. But if I wasn't, but that was so organic. I mean, again,
Yep.
it's very much like, just feels like my whole surfing career has kind of been like that. As far as like, they just, Keith Malloy pops up. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
I don't know if it was an Instagram message or no. I think I met him. I met him on the North Shore about 4 years ago or 3 years ago or something. I met him before that, but like, he was at a Sunrise Shack, and I was having a little smoothie. I was with Tiger Lily, and going to get a little treat for her and that. And then we sat down, and I was catching up with them. They were filming with Emmy Erickson. I just sat down and chatted some shit with them, I guess. And next thing you know, hey Tom, like, really cool meeting you. Like, again, like, the boys was asking if you'd be keen to maybe do a movie with us. be part of a film and on you, and would that be something you'd be interested in? And I'm just like, well, yeah, of course I would, man. Like, of course, didn't talk about like whether I'd get paid or any of the business. It was just like, yeah, I mean, I love what you guys do, how you make your films, and also just who you are as a brand. And like, of course, let's give it a go. And they came over to England and Ireland and spent a few weeks together. And that little crew, the three of them, they just nail it. And like, nicest people I've ever worked with. You know what I mean? They just it was so relaxed and easy, and nothing was forced. And obviously, we ended up making a film, which is going to be premiere in December in on the North Shore, so that'll be cool. Um, it's just about me, really, in my little world, and yeah, that kind of propelled into a sponsorship. I was definitely badgering Keith for about a year. That wasn't so organic, right? No, but I was definitely like, "Hey, brother, like, and he's like, "Don't worry, though, it's coming, it's coming." You know what I mean? And then like they were like, "Yeah, like, well, his nickname's Bags, but Mike
Yeah.
basically was just, I connected with him on the phone, and he's my manager, and he was just like, it felt like a friend, a supportive friend, like a family member. Like he's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. Basically, you just be you, and we sponsor you, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, like,
I can do
okay,
that. Yeah. Right.
uh,
All
we're
right.
on. We're
Well,
on. Right. Let's get on the website and see what goodies we can get. Do you know what I mean? And it was
yeah.
just, yeah, it's been a couple of years, and yeah, I mean, my relationship with them is like Vans. I mean, they kind of just check in as friends with me every once in a while, and I'll see him in Hawaii. I can't wait to put this movie out, man. It's like definitely, I'm really stoked with it. It's really pure, and it feels like it's really me. It's got Mickey Smith's music in it. One of my best mates. It's got my family in it, which is so important to me. And um, it's just well put together. Those guys know how to do it. It's great. I'm really stoked.
I like it. And Keith, he's been on this podcast. I think he would admit that he needs to get badgered or dragged, because otherwise he would never leave his place on the ranch, nor would I. But yeah,
Yeah,
he's
I'm
like,
I'm, I'm gonna
yeah.
go and stay with him, man. I want to go. I want to bring the family to stay with him. He's invited us over. I got to go and check
Good
it
for
out.
you. I like it. We're gonna take one more break to get a word in from our
All right,
sponsor,
mate.
and we will be right back. All right, we are back. This is the lineup. I am Dave Prodan here with Tom Lowe. Tom, thank you so much for all your time today. You talked a little bit about plans for the rest of the year. We're going to be in Hawaii, got a film coming out.
Yeah.
What else should people know? Like, what's the rest of 2023 look like for you? And do you have any kind of next year plans that are percolating at this point?
Well, I mean, I'm really excited about two films. Like we've got the Yeti film, which is obviously I'm the most excited about, and I'm going over next month with the family. We're going to be spending 3 months on the North Shore as a base camp, which is a bit different than living over in Portugal or Ireland. A bit warmer, and we've done it before, and we've always had a great time. We've got a lot of really good friends, old friends, new friends over there. So and then premiering that, and along with Harry Bryant, who rides for Vans, the Australian mate of mine. He's just made an absolute beast of a film by the looks of it, and I'm really stoked to be featured in it because he came over to Ireland a few winters ago, and he put the time in and went old school with it. Just like the whole no posts for months and just
Right.
score the best waves of his life, and just those guys. As a term that gets thrown around a little bit, are core lords. They are lords of the underground core surfing industry, which there are many of, but they're fewer and far between these days because people just love the phone. Let's get a bit
Right.
alive on that. It just, and for me, it just waters down like a lot of the experience around these surfs and the energy, and in Ireland in particular. But of course, people got to do their job. I'm not judging. Do what you want to do, and I post stuff all the time. So we're all playing the game. But I
Right.
do love it when a good crew of the best surfers in the world arrive, out surf everybody, have a great experience, and just really cherish it for themselves. And then year down the line, bring out a great film. And so it has that old school feel about it where those guys have been working on it for some time. And so Harry's going to be premiering that on the 9th of December, I think, in Haleiwa over in the North Shore. So I get to go and be part of that, and I'm excited about that too. Don't know whether I'm in the pipeline event. Maybe Vans can listen to this, and that might get them excited. But they're sponsoring it, and
I
I'm
like the pressure. We should definitely push for that. I think that'll be the caption that we put out when we promote it. It'll just be listen to Tom Lowe and why Vans should include him in the Pipe Masters.
Exactly. But we're in the Jaws event, so we got that one's going to kick off, and the next, could happen anytime
soonish. Yeah.
Now, so that's an always up in the air thing. The Eddie, we're on the alternate list for the Eddie Cow contest, which is a first for me. What an honor, and just to be, in the mix for that, which it's basically, I'm not a contest guy. I really am not. I say that because I just don't really know how to do them. I don't really have a head for hassling you in the lineup when it's big. I'm just going to let you go if you want it. You know what I mean? And if my wave will come, it will come. So it's not really the mindset for winning. But that's not really a winning kind of contest. It's more of a free for all, go for gold, do it for the Eddie legacy, and just sort of represent, for your brothers and sisters out there, putting it on the line. And so it's I'd love to do that. And so, I'm quite excited to go to the ceremony and be part of that one this winter. And besides that, we don't know what nature's going to bring, right? They're talking about El Nino, could be loads of big waves, could be, bullshit. We'll see.
It's fair, yeah.
Nature, I don't know. It could be the best winter ever in Ireland, and I'm just over there the whole winter, and my family are on the North Shore. Like, when are you going to come back? My missus will be like, losing her mind. She might have to move to Ireland. Who knows?
Maybe.
You don't know what's going to happen, man.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a busy few months in either event. And I can't wait to see that film. I can't wait to see Harry's film too. I think that's going to be incredible. Before you go,
sure.
we put a few questions out to our followers at the Lineup Pod on Instagram. We got a lot of questions back, but we've whittled them down to 3. First question is from Mike Keen Skate, and he is referring to a wave you posted on your own Instagram. We were just talking about this 31 weeks ago. You probably remember it. The caption says, "On my way to Valhalla." I think after watching the clip, I would say Valhalla is probably on its way to you after that. But anyway, he is referring to this wave, and his question is, how fast is a wave like that? And then he asks, where, with multiple question marks.
Okay, so it's at Mullaghmore.
There you go.
And that was about 15 years ago or something. Do you know what I mean? That's a long time ago, that wave. So not at all recent. And I'm not good with technical, how fast you actually go on a wave. So I'm sorry about that. But, I'm sure if you look at some of the other lads that are doing the towing at Nazaré and that, they get detailed on that.
Right, yeah.
I don't know how fast we go. Do you know what I mean? You go pretty quick, but
well, from a feel standpoint,
wave,
yeah. I was gonna say, from a feel standpoint, does it feel faster, slower, the same as, I guess, dropping in at somewhere like Nazaré?
When you basically, look, when you're surfing your average wave and you just get up and you're pumping along the wave, of course you can generate a similar speed. Once you start really pumping down the line of a long wave, even a small wave, you can generate a lot of speed. But when you're going down like a wave that's 15 foot plus, you without a shadow of a doubt that you do fly down that wave a lot faster
right.
and than what you generate on a small wave. And at least how it feels. It's just all intensified, and that particular wipeout was pretty aggressive. My foot, went around the back of my head, and it kind of I finally did the yoga position I've been trying to do for about 20 years. Yes. No, it wasn't good, but we had a groin strain on that one, and all sorts of stuff was going on. But and a pretty decent hold down. That was before all the inflatable vests and all that stuff. So yeah, it was just me and Ferg and then Mickey bobbing around doing photographs and picking up. That's how he used to do it. He used to take photos on his own, get the shot, quickly shove it in his little wet bag, come in and save us. That was his mission. Like it's pretty funny.
So media hat and safety crew hat in the same.
He had it all.
Jesus,
everything. He's the guru.
Second question is from @bcode1, who asks, what is the biggest wave you've fallen on and how long were you held underwater?
Probably when I jumped over at Nazaré on a big one. And because the reason why I know how much I was held down for is because I can see it on the timer,
right,
on the footage, because it was like a 42-second hold down, and then I pop up, so you can sort of see me down there for that time. And weirdly enough, with all the adrenaline and how prepared I was, or what that particular day, how I was feeling, I didn't feel panicked under the water at all. It winded me a bit when I landed after I jumped off, but it was actually somehow felt very fast. And then when I looked at the footage, weeks later, I realized, geez, that was actually probably my longest hold down. But yeah, probably that, I guess.
Good answer.
It's that one I jumped. I got like wipeout of the year thing with it, so it's that one when I jumped over, and it just But I've had a lot worse wipeouts on a lot smaller waves. So it's like I said at the beginning of this interview, it's the sneaky ones that get you, and it can be a 3-6 foot wave, and just I guess what I always say is just like prepare for not I wouldn't say prepare for the worst, but just keep your wits about you even on these small sessions, because you never know with nature when you're going to get taught a lesson. It's going to happen at some stage. It's just a matter of time.
It's a good answer. Last question that we pulled from the herd here on Instagram is from @right.fam, who asks, where do you want to surf that you haven't been yet?
Yeah, my missus was asking me that, like, isn't there somewhere you want to go? Do you want to go to Namibia, like, this longest barreling left in the whole world kind of style? And, we can go and look at Africa and all that. I mean, it sounds awesome and it's cool. It's wicked adventure. And like, there's so many like nuts wave. I haven't surfed Shipsterns Bluff in Tasmania yet, like that's one of the nutsest heavy waves out there, but not really that bothered. I'm not that bothered. Like I keep it I'm very satisfied with my flow. And like, I feel like the waves that I've ridden, I haven't ridden them to the point like I think the level can keep being pushed, or for my own self, like whether it's the rides at Mullaghmore, I can go bigger and heavier, I want to, so I'm more inspired to go back and surf the waves that I've been learning off and surfing for like the past decade or more, than I am to go and try new waves. There's not really anywhere out there that's right there. Yeah, there's nowhere out there that I go, you know what, I've got to go and ride that before so bit of a boring question answer. Sorry.
It's an honest one. That's a good one. Well, we do appreciate everyone that wrote in at the Lineup Pod. We are now down to our final segment. This is the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can.
Oh no, this could all go wrong.
If you could only have one board set up for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad, bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
Thruster.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
Oh no, it's been a while. Kids. Nah, I shouldn't blame it on that. I don't know. Geez, you got me. I don't know. What was it? I'm looking around. Is there anyone on the shelf? I'm moving around all the time, people, This isn't even my house. I don't even know. We're moving out next month. I don't know what it was. It was probably like a autobiography, like Mike Tyson or someone like that. You know what I mean? I love my autobiographies. But yeah. So probably
That's a
autobiography.
better answer than we get often for that question. So don't worry about that.
I love books, people.
Best surf
Oh,
film
actually, I
ever.
should
Okay,
say,
okay.
no, I should say, I read a book every night to my daughter, Tiger Lily. So last night I was reading Moana.
Oh,
So
that's a good
yeah,
one.
mate, I'm reading books all the time. So there you go.
There you go. Best surf film ever.
Oh no, probably like Litmus. I really like Litmus.
That's a good answer. What is one wave you never have to go back to?
The right in WA
That sounds fair.
and the left. Just no thanks. They're fine. Keep them boys.
If you
Heaviest
only
places on the world.
they look terrifying. If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life, and you can dreamcast it, it can be any size, any conditions, like best friends, whatever. Which wave would it be?
Oh mate. Oh wow. Probably Porto Escondido. And the reason it's beachy. So you know what I mean? You're getting the wedgie, you're getting the small short boards, you got to have something that you can surf up to and then beyond. If I say somewhere like Mullaghmore, if I say somewhere else, it's just going to be like, well, you can't, it doesn't break till it's 10 foot. So what
Right,
are you going
right.
to do?
I like that.
So
That's a great
Porto.
answer. Best person to share a lineup with.
Depends on the surf. Probably Nate Fletcher. He just pumps me up every time. Small, medium, or large waves, just awesomeness, radicalness on all levels.
That's a good answer. That makes a ton of sense. Worst person to share a lineup with.
That's one of them ones.
Everyone has an answer. Not everyone says it. That's okay.
It's too, yeah, that one could go wrong.
But you
You know what
know
I'm saying?
someone. You
I don't
have
know.
someone in your mind's eye. You're like, I know who it is.
They're right there. And they're
Okay,
just
that's fair.
really
That's fair.
aggressive.
I like it. Last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by.
Becoming present.
I love it.
Truly
Tom
present.
Lowe, thank you so much for your time and your insights, and congratulations on all you've accomplished so far. I can't wait to see the film. I can't wait to see more of what you do. But yeah, I really appreciated the time. This has been a great conversation.
Nice one, Dave. Thanks, mate.
Yeah.